What's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to share a story that came from a former cybercrime detective with 7 years on the job. Someone who spent their career diving into the darkest corners of the internet hunting predators. What happened during one investigation officially remains an unsolved case. Active but cold, no suspects in custody, but what this detective actually saw on those tapes, what was done to him personally, that never made it into any report. Think about this for a second. Right now there are people filming their crimes, documenting pure evil, and sometimes they want to be found, they want you to see their work, they want to prove they're untouchable. This story will make you check your locks twice tonight. If you like this content, hit that like button, subscribe and comment where you're watching from. Let's get into the story. Most cases you work in cybercrime fade from memory once they're closed or handed off to prosecution. You investigate fraud rings, child exploitation, identity theft, hacking schemes, all horrible in their own ways but processable, followable, solvable. After 7 years working cybercrime for a major metro police department, I thought I'd seen the worst the internet had to offer. Thought I'd developed the thick skin necessary to wade through digital cesspools without it affecting me. I was wrong. There was one case that broke through every defense I'd built. One case that made me turn in my badge and gun and walk away from law enforcement forever. I still have nightmares about it. Still check my locks obsessively. Still see those videos when I close my eyes. It started on a Tuesday morning in October. I remember because it was my daughter's birthday and I'd promised to leave work early to make it to her party. I was at my desk reviewing a routine phishing case when a department receptionist called, said a package had been delivered for the cybercrime unit, no return address, no courier information, just dropped at the front desk sometime overnight. That should have been the first red flag, should have triggered protocols, but packages came to the department all the time. Evidence drops, anonymous tips, nothing unusual. My partner Chun brought it to our workspace, a medium-sized box, professionally wrapped. My name written on a label in precise handwriting. Not the unit's name, my name specifically, Detective Marcus Webb, Cybercrime Division. Chun and I followed protocol, scanned it for explosives, ran it through our security screening, came back clean. We opened it carefully, both of us wearing gloves, documenting everything for chain of custody. Inside was bubble wrap protecting a single item, an external hard drive, 2 terabyte capacity, unmarked except for a small piece of paper taped to it. The note was handwritten in the same precise penmanship as the address label. You've been looking for me. Now watch what I've done. You're already too late. My stomach dropped. I'd seen messages like this before from perpetrators who wanted credit for their crimes, who couldn't resist bragging, but something about the tone felt different, felt personal in a way that made my skin crawl. We took the hard drive to our isolated analysis station, a computer not connected to any network, specifically for examining potentially malicious devices. Chun booted it up while I documented standard procedure for digital evidence. The drive contained a single folder labeled My Work, and inside were 47 video files, each labeled with a date spanning the last 3 years. The oldest file was dated November 2020. The most recent was from 3 days ago. Chun looked at me, I looked at him. We both knew this was going to be bad. You don't send cops a hard drive full of videos unless you're showing them something they need to see, something they've been looking for, something that's going to haunt them. We opened the first video, dated November 14th, 2020, and immediately I felt my blood run cold. The footage was shot from a first-person perspective, like from a GoPro or body camera, showing someone's hands opening a car door, getting inside, positioning the camera to face forward through the windshield. Then the view shifted as the person started driving, following a woman in a silver Honda Civic through suburban streets at night. The camera never showed the driver's face, only his gloved hands on the steering wheel, his legs, the dashboard. He followed her for 20 minutes, keeping careful distance, never getting too close, professional surveillance. When she pulled into a driveway, the camera kept recording as she went inside her house. Lights turning on in windows, normal evening routine of someone who had no idea they were being watched. The video continued for another 10 minutes. The camera filming her house from across the street, documenting which rooms had lights on, what time they went off, building a timeline of her habits. Then the video cut to black, file ended. Chun and I sat in silence for a moment, processing what we'd just seen. "That's surveillance footage," Chen said quietly. "Professional grade. This isn't some amateur stalker. This is someone who knows what they're doing, someone patient." I nodded, felt dread building in my chest. "And he sent us 46 more videos," I said. "Which means this isn't just surveillance, this is a catalog. This is someone showing us their work. We needed to see more, needed to understand what we were dealing with, so we opened the second video." The second file was dated 3 days after the first, same first-person perspective, same gloved hands, but different location, different victim. This time the camera showed someone breaking into a house through a back window. The timestamp read 2:47 a.m. The footage was grainy night vision but clear enough to see everything. The person moved through the house quietly, professionally, checking rooms, recording layouts, lingering outside a bedroom door where someone was sleeping. The camera pushed the door open slowly, filmed a woman sleeping in her bed, unaware, vulnerable. The cameraman stood there for maybe 2 minutes, just watching, breathing audibly. Then backed out, exited the house the same way he came in, disappeared into the night. The violation of it made me physically sick. This wasn't just watching someone. This was invasion, this was practicing, this was preparation for something worse. We spent the next 6 hours reviewing videos, taking breaks when we needed to, documenting everything, and the pattern became horrifyingly clear. The videos progressed from surveillance to break-ins to actual assaults, each one more violent than the last. Each one showing a predator who was escalating, who was refining his methods, who was getting bolder. Some videos I recognized, cases that had crossed my desk before, unsolved home invasions, assaults where the victim couldn't identify the attacker, crimes that had gone cold because we had no leads, no physical evidence, no witnesses. Now here they were, documented in first person by the perpetrator himself, evidence we'd been desperate for, delivered to us as a taunt. This wasn't someone asking to be caught. This was someone showing us how powerless we were, how he'd been operating right under our noses for 3 years and we hadn't even known he existed. But the worst part, the part that still keeps me awake at night, was realizing that some of the victims in these videos were completely unknown to us. Women who'd been targeted, violated, maybe worse, and had never reported it, or had reported it and been dismissed, or had disappeared entirely and no one had noticed. I counted at least 12 videos showing victims I couldn't match to any case in our system. 12 women who were out there somewhere, either too traumatized to come forward or silenced permanently. The scope of what we were looking at was staggering. This wasn't a single crime or even a series of crimes. This was a sustained campaign of terror spanning years. Dozens of victims, all documented, all filmed, all saved like trophies. And whoever sent this to us wanted us to know exactly what he'd done, wanted us to feel the weight of it, wanted us to understand that he was untouchable. Introduction minus channel host. What's up everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Today I'm going to share a story that came from a former cybercrime detective with 7 years on the job. Someone who spent their career diving into the darkest corners of the internet hunting predators. What happened during one investigation officially remains an unsolved case. Active but cold, no suspects in custody, but what this detective actually saw on those tapes, what was done to him personally, that never made it into any report. Think about this for a second. Right now there are people filming their crimes, documenting pure evil, and sometimes they want to be found. They want you to see their work. They want to prove they're untouchable. This story will make you check your locks twice tonight. If you like this content, hit that like button, subscribe and comment where you're watching from. Let's get into the story. Chapter 1. Opening plus hook. Most cases you work in cybercrime fade from memory once they're closed or handed off to prosecution. You investigate fraud rings, child exploitation, Identity theft, hacking schemes, all horrible in their own ways, but processable, followable, solvable. After 7 years working cybercrime for a major metro police department, I thought I'd seen the worst the internet had to offer. Thought I'd developed the thick skin necessary to wade through digital cesspools without it affecting me. I was wrong. There was one case that broke through every defense I'd built. One case that made me turn in my badge and gun and walk away from law enforcement forever. I still have nightmares about it, still check my locks obsessively, still see those videos when I close my eyes. It started on a Tuesday morning in October. I remember because it was my daughter's birthday and I'd promised to leave work early to make it to her party. I was at my desk reviewing a routine phishing case when our department receptionist called. Said a package had been delivered for the cybercrime unit, no return address, no courier information, just dropped at the front desk sometime overnight. That should have been the first red flag, should have triggered protocols, but packages came to the department all the time, evidence drops, anonymous tips, nothing unusual. My partner Chun brought it to our workspace, a medium-sized box, professionally wrapped, my name written on a label in precise handwriting. Not the unit's name, my name specifically, Detective Marcus Webb, Cybercrime Division. Chun and I followed protocol, scanned it for explosives, ran it through our security screening, came back clean. We opened it carefully, both of us wearing gloves, documenting everything for chain of custody. Inside was bubble wrap protecting a single item, an external hard drive, 2 terabyte capacity, unmarked except for a small piece of paper taped to it. The note was handwritten in the same precise penmanship as the address label. You've been looking for me. Now watch what I've done. You're already too late. My stomach dropped. I'd seen messages like this before from perpetrators who wanted credit for their crimes, who couldn't resist bragging. But something about the tone felt different, felt personal in a way that made my skin crawl. We took the hard drive to our isolated analysis station, a computer not connected to any network, specifically for examining potentially malicious devices. Chun booted it up while I documented, standard procedure for digital evidence. The drive contained a single folder labeled My Work, and inside were 47 video files, each labeled with a date spanning the last 3 years. The oldest file was dated November 2020. The most recent was from 3 days ago. Chun looked at me, I looked at him. We both knew this was going to be bad. You don't send cops a hard drive full of videos unless you're showing them something they need to see, something they've been looking for, something that's going to haunt them. We opened the first video, dated November 14th, 2020, and immediately I felt my blood run cold. The footage was shot from a first-person perspective, like from a GoPro or body camera, showing someone's hands opening a car door, getting inside, positioning the camera to face forward through the windshield. Then the view shifted as the person started driving, following a woman in a silver Honda Civic through suburban streets at night. The camera never showed the driver's face, only his gloved hands on the steering wheel, his legs, the dashboard. He followed her for 20 minutes, keeping careful distance, never getting too close, professional surveillance. When she pulled into a driveway, the camera kept recording as she went inside her house. Lights turning on in windows, normal evening routine of someone who had no idea they were being watched. The video continued for another 10 minutes. The camera filming her house from across the street, documenting which rooms had lights on, what time they went off, building a timeline of her habits. Then the video cut to black, file ended. Chun and I sat in silence for a moment, processing what we'd just seen. That's surveillance footage, Chun said quietly. Professional grade. This isn't some amateur stalker. This is someone who knows what they're doing, someone patient. I nodded, felt dread building in my chest. And he sent us 46 more videos, I said, which means this isn't just surveillance. This is a catalog. This is someone showing us their work. We needed to see more, needed to understand what we were dealing with, so we opened the second video. The second file was dated 3 days after the first, same first-person perspective, same gloved hands, but different location, different victim. This time the camera showed someone breaking into a house through a back window. The timestamp read 2:47 a.m. The footage was grainy night vision but clear enough to see everything. The person moved through the house quietly, professionally, checking rooms, recording layouts, lingering outside a bedroom door where someone was sleeping. The camera pushed the door open slowly, filmed a woman sleeping in her bed, unaware, vulnerable. The cameraman stood there for maybe 2 minutes, just watching, breathing audibly, then backed out, exited the house the same way he came in, disappeared into the night. The violation of it made me physically sick. This wasn't just watching someone. This was invasion. This was practicing. This was preparation for something worse. We spent the next 6 hours reviewing videos, taking breaks when we needed to, documenting everything, and the pattern became horrifyingly clear. The videos progressed from surveillance to break-ins to actual assaults, each one more violent than the last. Each one showing a predator who was escalating, who was refining his methods, who was getting bolder. Some videos I recognized, cases that had crossed my desk before, unsolved home invasions, assaults where the victim couldn't identify the attacker, crimes that had gone cold because we had no leads, no physical evidence, no witnesses. Now here they were, documented in first person by the perpetrator himself, evidence we'd been desperate for, delivered to us as a taunt. This wasn't someone asking to be caught. This was someone showing us how powerless we were. How he'd been operating right under our noses for 3 years, and we hadn't even known he existed. But the worst part, the part that still keeps me awake at night, was realizing that some of the victims in these videos were completely unknown to us. Women who'd been targeted, violated, maybe worse, and had never reported it. Or had reported it and been dismissed, or had disappeared entirely and no one had noticed. I counted at least 12 videos showing victims I couldn't match to any case in our system. 12 women who were out there somewhere, either too traumatized to come forward or silenced permanently. The scope of what we were looking at was staggering. This wasn't a single crime or even a series of crimes. This was a sustained campaign of terror spanning years, dozens of victims, all documented, all filmed, all saved like trophies. And whoever sent this to us wanted us to know exactly what he'd done, wanted us to feel the weight of it, wanted us to understand that he was untouchable. Chapter 2. The mysterious package we called in our lieutenant immediately. This was way beyond routine cybercrime investigation. This was active serial predator with multiple victims across multiple jurisdictions. Lieutenant Ramirez took one look at the first few videos and escalated to the task force level. Within hours we had FBI involvement, our entire cybercrime unit dedicated to this case, and specialists coming in from digital forensics. The conference room became our command center, whiteboards filled with timelines, victim information, location data extracted from the videos. Every video was being analyzed frame by frame, every detail logged, every possible clue examined. We were looking for anything that could identify this person, any mistake he'd made, any moment where he'd gotten careless and shown something identifiable. The hard drive itself was a dead-end, commercially available model, sold in millions. No serial number registration, wiped clean of prints and DNA. The videos had been scrubbed of metadata. All EXIF data removed, timestamps were there but could have been manually added, no geolocation data embedded. Whoever created these files knew exactly how to cover their digital tracks, knew what investigators would look for, knew how to make himself a ghost. But he wasn't perfect, nobody is, and we had 47 videos to work with. Hundreds of hours of footage. Somewhere in all that data there had to be something, a reflection in a window, a recognizable landmark in the background, a pattern in location or timing that would lead us to him. Chun led the technical analysis while I coordinated with the victim identification team. We were trying to match women in the videos to existing cases, missing persons reports, anything that would give us names and context. The FBI brought in behavioral analysts to profile the unsub. Their assessment was chilling. This was an organized offender with high intelligence, meticulous planning, complete emotional detachment from his victims. The fact that he filmed everything suggested narcissism, need for control, desire to relive his crimes. But sending the videos to police suggested something more, a need for recognition, validation, proof of superiority. He wanted us to see his work, wanted us to know we couldn't stop him, wanted to demonstrate his power over both his victims and the system meant to protect them. We identified the first victim from video 1 within hours. Rebecca Martinez, 29, had reported a stalking incident in November 2020, but the case went nowhere. No evidence, no suspect. She eventually moved to another state. We contacted her. She confirmed the silver Honda Civic was hers, confirmed the house in the video was where she'd lived, broke down crying when we told her someone had been filming her, had been inside her house while she slept. She'd felt watched for months, had reported it, had been told she was probably imagining things, and now here was proof she'd been right all along. The guilt of that, of dismissing her concerns, of not taking her seriously, that weighed on all of us. But especially on me because I'd been the detective who'd reviewed her initial stalking report and marked it as low priority. Video after video we found victims, some who'd reported crimes, some who hadn't, some who'd disappeared and were now confirmed dead, their bodies found in locations that matched backgrounds in the videos. Each identification was a gut punch. Each name added to the board was a failure of the system. A person we hadn't protected. A crime we hadn't prevented. The task force worked around the clock. I was sleeping maybe 3 hours a night, living on coffee and adrenaline, obsessed with finding this person, stopping him before he could hurt anyone else. My wife called worried, said I'd missed my daughter's birthday party. I'd completely forgotten, told her I'd make it up, couldn't explain why I was so consumed by this case, couldn't tell her about the videos, about what I was seeing every day. The break came on day 4 of the investigation. Video number 17 showed a daytime surveillance operation, the cameraman following a woman through a shopping center parking lot. In the reflection on a car window, you could see part of the cameraman's vehicle, a white van with something on the side, graphics or text too blurred to read clearly. Our imaging specialists enhanced it, sharpened it, used every tool available, and finally got a partial, looked like a company logo, some kind of service business. We started building a list of every white van registered to service companies in the metro area. Hundreds of possibilities, but it was something, the first concrete lead we had. Video 23 gave us more, shot at dusk. The cameraman walking through a residential neighborhood, and in the background you could see a street sign, partially obscured by a tree but readable with enhancement, Oakmont Drive. We knew that street. Upscale suburb about 15 miles from downtown. We pulled every home invasion, stalking, or assault case from that neighborhood for the past 3 years, found 6 that matched the timeline and MO. The pattern was forming. This person operated in a specific geographic area, had a comfort zone, probably lived or worked nearby. We were narrowing the net, getting closer. I could feel it. And I think he could feel it too, because that's when video 33 showed up in our analysis queue and everything changed completely. I was the one who opened it. Chun had gone home to sleep. I was alone in the command center at 2 a.m. Couldn't sleep. Wanted to keep working. Video 33 started like the others. Surveillance footage. First-person perspective. Showing a woman pulling into a driveway with a young girl in the back seat, maybe 7 or 8 years old. The woman helped the girl out. They walked to the front door together. Normal scene. Everyday life. Then the camera zoomed in on the house number, 4291, panned to show the street sign, Pinehurst Drive. My street. My house. My wife and daughter. The video had been shot 2 days ago. I'd been at work. They'd been coming home from ballet class Tuesday afternoon, just like every week. The camera stayed on my house for 5 minutes, documenting, recording, learning the routine. Then it cut to interior footage, someone walking through what looked like a home improvement store. Camera focused on security systems, locks, alarm equipment. Then cut to black, then cut again to footage of me, shot from across the parking lot of our police station. showing me getting into my car after a shift, zoomed in on my face, my license plate, everything. Then text appeared on screen, white letters on black background. I know you're watching this, Detective Webb. I've been watching you too. Your daughter is beautiful. She's very talented at ballet. Tuesdays at 4 p.m., same studio every week. So predictable. You're trying very hard to find me, but I'm always 3 steps ahead. This is my gift to you. Now you know how it feels to be watched, to be hunted, to be powerless. Enjoy the rest of the videos. There are 14 more to go. The text faded, video ended. I sat there staring at the blank screen. Hands shaking, world collapsing. I called Ramirez immediately, didn't care that it was 2 a.m., told him what I'd found, told him my family was being targeted. Within 30 minutes I had patrol units at my house. My wife and daughter were woken up, confused and terrified. We relocated them to a safe house that same night. I couldn't go with them, had to stay on the case, had to brief the task force, had to figure out how this psychopath had identified me, how he'd known I'd be the one reviewing the videos. The answer came quickly. The hard drive had been addressed to me specifically. He'd planned this from the beginning, had researched who would catch the case, had chosen me deliberately. This wasn't random. This was targeted. This was personal, and I had no idea why. The FBI profilers updated their assessment. This was about power and control. The unsub was escalating from targeting random victims to targeting the investigator, proving he could reach anyone, even those hunting him. By threatening my family, he was trying to compromise the investigation, force me off the case, demonstrate his superiority. It was working. I was terrified, couldn't think straight. Every sound made me jump. Every car I didn't recognize made me paranoid. Ramirez offered to reassign me, put someone else as lead, but I refused, couldn't walk away, needed to be the one to catch this monster, needed to protect not just my family, but everyone else he might target. I was in too deep, too personally involved, breaking every rule about emotional detachment, but I didn't care. We doubled our efforts on the technical analysis. Every video was being processed through advanced imaging software, looking for any identifiable detail, any clue to location or identity. Video by video, we built a geographic profile. The unsub operated primarily in a 15-mile radius in the northern suburbs. All his targets lived or worked in that area. His surveillance patterns suggested someone who was local, who knew the neighborhoods, who blended in. The white van from Video 17 became our primary lead. We cross-referenced service companies operating in that area with criminal databases, looking for anyone with prior offenses, anyone who'd have access to homes, anyone who fit the profile. The victim count kept growing. We'd identified 32 of the 47 videos, matched them to actual people, actual crimes. The other 15 remained mysteries, women we couldn't identify, either because they'd never reported or because they were deceased and we hadn't found their bodies yet. Each identification required victim notification, having to call these women and tell them we had footage of their trauma, their violation, their worst moments documented by their attacker. Some broke down, some got angry, some went silent. All of them asked the same question: "Have you caught him yet?" And every time I had to say no, not yet, but we're close, we're working on it. Feeling like a liar because we weren't close, we were drowning in evidence but had no suspect, no name, no face. Video 38 showed a different kind of assault, more violent, the victim fighting back, screaming for help, the unsub beating her unconscious, then fleeing when neighbors responded to the screams. We identified her, Sarah Chun, no relation to my partner. 34 attack happened 16 months ago. She'd survived but sustained traumatic brain injury, still in assisted living, unable to care for herself. We went to interview her, see if she could provide any details, any description, but the injury had stolen her memories of that night. She couldn't remember the attack, couldn't identify her attacker, could barely form complete sentences. I looked at her sitting in that care facility, looked at what this monster had done to her, looked at her parents crying quietly in the corner, and I felt rage I'd never experienced before, pure burning hatred for whoever did this. Back at the command center, Chun had found something in video 41. A brief moment where the unsub's camera caught a reflection in a storefront window showed his vehicle clearly, white van with lettering on the side. Partial logo visible, we enhanced it, sharpened it, got lucky with the angle. The logo reads Secure Home Systems with a phone number beneath. Local company that installed residential security systems, alarms, cameras, smart locks. We pulled their employee records, 12 technicians, all with access to client homes, all with knowledge of security systems and how to defeat them. We started background checks on all 12, looking for criminal history, psychological red flags, anything suspicious. 3 of the 12 had prior records, minor offenses, DUIs, misdemeanors. Nothing that screamed serial predator, but enough to warrant deeper investigation. We brought all 3 in for interviews. All 3 had alibis for some of the video dates. 2 of them were eliminated quickly. The third, Marcus Holloway, 38, declined to answer questions, lawyered up immediately, which was his right but raised flags. We couldn't hold him without evidence, had to release him, but we put surveillance on him, watched his movements, tracked his van, waited for him to make a mistake. For 3 days he followed a perfect routine, work, home, errands, nothing suspicious. Nothing that connected him to the crimes, but he knew he was being watched, could probably spot our surveillance, was too smart to give us anything. Day 4 of surveillance, Holloway's van was parked at his apartment, but he wasn't inside. We'd lost him somehow, he'd slipped our tail, gone underground. We executed a search warrant on his apartment and vehicle, tore the place apart looking for evidence, found camera equipment, found hard drives, found a laptop with encrypted files we couldn't access without his password. We found souvenirs, jewelry that matched descriptions from victims, IDs from women in the videos, trophies he'd kept from his crimes. We had him, had physical evidence connecting him to multiple victims, had everything we needed for arrest and prosecution. But we didn't have him because Marcus Holloway had vanished, disappeared completely, and left us one final message. On his laptop, set to automatically play when powered on, was one last video shot in his apartment before he fled. Marcus Holloway speaking directly to camera for the first time, his face visible, smiling, calm, almost friendly. "Hello, Detective Webb," he said, voice smooth and educated. "By now you've found my collection, my work, my legacy. I want you to know I'm impressed by how quickly you tracked me down. You're better than I expected, which is why I'm leaving. I'm already gone, probably in another state by now. New name, new identity, new hunting ground. You'll never catch me because I'm always 3 steps ahead, because I'm smarter, better prepared, more patient than you could ever be." He paused, leaned closer to camera. "And just so you know, I'll always be watching. Watching you, watching your family, watching all those other women out there who don't know I exist yet. This isn't over. This is just intermission." The video ended, file deleted itself, laptop hard drive started wiping automatically. We recovered some data, but not everything. The manhunt for Marcus Holloway consumed 3 months, federal agencies, multiple states, resources poured into finding him, and we came up empty every time. He'd planned his escape meticulously, had fake identities prepared, had cash hidden, had escape routes mapped, had been preparing for this possibility for years. We found 3 safe houses he'd rented under false names, found abandoned vehicles, found evidence he'd been planning to disappear long before we got close. He was a ghost, and he was good at it. Better than most fugitives? Because this was someone who'd studied how investigations worked, who understood how to exploit gaps in the system, who was always thinking 3 steps ahead just like he'd said. The victims we'd identified started a support group. Women who'd survived Marcus Holloway's attacks, who shared the trauma of knowing their worst moments had been recorded and cataloged like trophies. I attended one of their meetings, felt I owed them that much, needed to apologize for not catching him sooner, for not protecting them. They didn't blame me, most of them. They blamed the system that didn't take stalking seriously, that dismissed their reports, that told them they were being paranoid. Rebecca Martinez, the woman from the first video, asked me if I thought he'd stop, if he'd really moved on to another area, or if he was still watching them. I couldn't lie to her, told her honestly that predators like Holloway don't stop. They just find new hunting grounds, new victims, and yes, he was probably watching, probably got off on knowing they lived in fear. My family never went back to our house on Pinehurst Drive. We sold it at a loss, moved to a different state, changed our phone numbers, tried to build some kind of normal life. My daughter, Emma, developed severe anxiety, couldn't sleep alone, had nightmares about a man watching her through windows. She started therapy, worked with a child psychologist specializing in trauma, slowly got better but never fully recovered her sense of safety. My wife blamed me, not directly, but I could see it in her eyes. I'd brought this monster into our lives by working that case, by being the detective whose name was on that hard drive. Our marriage didn't survive it. We divorced 2 years later. Stayed friendly for Emma's sake, but the trust was broken. The safety of our family unit had been violated and couldn't be repaired. I couldn't stay in law enforcement. Every case reminded me of Holloway. Every unsolved crime felt like a failure. Every time I looked at video evidence, I saw those first-person perspective shots, heard his breathing, saw his gloved hands. I developed PTSD, had panic attacks watching surveillance footage, couldn't be in the cybercrime unit anymore. I took disability leave, saw a therapist, tried to process what I'd experienced, what I'd seen in those videos, what had been done to my family. The department was understanding, offered me a desk job, administrative work, anything to keep me on the force, but I couldn't do it, couldn't be around the job that had brought this evil into my life. I resigned 6 months after Holloway disappeared, turned in my badge and gun, walked away from 7 years of law enforcement, from a career I'd loved, from an identity I built my whole adult life around. The nightmares never stopped. I still see those videos when I close my eyes, still see the victims' faces, still hear Holloway's voice telling me he's always watching. I checked my locks obsessively, installed commercial-grade security system in my apartment, keep a gun within reach at all times even though I'm not a cop anymore. I monitor dark web forums looking for any sign of Holloway, any hint that he's surfaced somewhere, any new videos that might match his style. The FBI task force is still active, still searching, still getting tips that lead nowhere. But he's been gone for 4 years now, might as well be dead for all the trace he's left. Or he's out there right now, targeting new victims, filming new trophies, living his sick fantasy in some other city where no one knows to look for him. Some of the videos were never fully explained. 12 victims we couldn't identify, couldn't match to any reported crimes, couldn't find any trace of in missing persons databases. They're out there somewhere. Those women, either living with trauma they've never reported or buried in unmarked graves we've never found. I think about them all the time, wonder who they were, what happened to them, if anyone even knows they're missing. The weight of those unknown victims, that unfinished business, it's what keeps me up at night more than anything else. Somewhere there are families wondering what happened to daughters, sisters, mothers, and I have footage of their last moments but can't identify them. Can't give those families closure, can't even confirm if they're alive or dead. The hard drive itself is still in evidence, locked in a federal facility, subject to ongoing investigation that will probably never close. Copies were made for analysis, portions were shown in court during the few prosecutions we could make for related crimes. But the originals remain sealed, too disturbing for public release, too dangerous to let circulate. There have been FOIA requests from journalists, from true crime documentarians, from academics studying serial predators, all denied. The videos are too graphic, too violating a victim's privacy, too potentially inspiring to copycats. I'm glad they're locked away, glad the world won't see what I saw, wouldn't wish that knowledge on anyone. The behavioral analysts believe Holloway will eventually resurface, that someone with his need for recognition, his desire to prove his superiority, will eventually make contact again, send another hard drive, post something online, reach out in some way. They think his ego won't let him stay silent forever, that he needs the validation too much. Part of me hopes they're right, hopes he gets arrogant and makes a mistake that leads to his capture. Part of me hopes he's dead, hit by a bus, died in some random accident, took his secrets to the grave. But most of me knows the truth. He's out there. He's hunting, he's filming, and someday another detective is going to open a package and find new videos, new victims, new horrors, and the cycle will continue. I tried to move on, got a job doing corporate IT security, boring work but safe, predictable, no trauma, no victims, no monsters. I remarried, woman named Lisa who knew nothing about my past, about the case, about Holloway. I didn't tell her for 2 years, couldn't bring myself to explain. Finally broke down one night and confessed everything, showed her news articles about the case. Told her about the videos, about the threats to my family. She listened, held me while I cried, told me it wasn't my fault, told me I'd done everything I could. She was wrong, of course. I could have worked harder, thought smarter, caught him before he disappeared. But her belief in me, her refusal to see me as broken, it helped me start to heal, start to believe maybe I could have a future that wasn't defined by one monster and 47 videos. Emma's 16 now, doesn't remember much about the case, about why we moved, about the fear that consumed our family for those months. Her mother and I decided to tell her a simplified version, that Daddy worked a dangerous case and we needed to relocate for safety. Left out the details about the videos, about Holloway filming our house, about the threats. She accepted the explanation, moved on, became a well-adjusted teenager despite the early trauma. Sometimes I watch her and marvel at her resilience, her ability to live without fear, to trust the world in a way I never will again. She wants to study criminal psychology in college, says she wants to help people who've been through trauma. I support her but secretly hope she chooses a different path, can't bear the thought of her entering the same world that destroyed me. The support group I attended still meets monthly, 5 years later, about a dozen regular members. All Holloway victims, all trying to rebuild their lives. I go sometimes when I'm in the area visiting Emma, sit in the back and listen, offer support when I can. They appreciate having a former investigator there, someone who understands the case from both sides, who saw the videos but also knows what it's like to be targeted. Rebecca Martinez runs the group now, turned her trauma into advocacy, lobbies for stronger stalking laws, better victim support systems, mandatory training for police on how to handle stalking reports seriously. She's written a book about her experience, about surviving Holloway, about the failures of the system. It's helped a lot of people but also keeps the case in public consciousness. Every few months someone claims they've seen Holloway. Tips come in from across the country, from Canada, from Mexico, all investigated, all leading nowhere. The FBI maintains an active case file, keeps his photo on their most wanted list, but resources have shifted to newer threats, fresher cases. Holloway's file gets dustier every year. I still get updates from the task force, courtesy calls when new tips come in. They know I'm personally invested, know I'll never let this go. The lead agent, Martinez from FBI, he thinks Holloway might have left the country, might be operating internationally now, harder to track, easier to disappear. We'll probably never find him unless he wants to be found. The encrypted files from Holloway's laptop were eventually cracked, took 2 years and significant computing resources, revealed more victims, more videos we hadn't seen on the original hard drive, brought the total count to 73 videos spanning 5 years. 73 documented crimes, 73 women violated, some multiple times. All recorded, all saved, all cataloged like specimens in some sick collection. The new videos led to more identifications, more victim notifications, more families learning their loved ones had been targeted, more trauma spreading outward like ripples in water. Every identification felt like opening a wound that had started to heal, felt like inflicting new pain for the sake of justice that might never come. I wonder sometimes what Holloway's doing now. If he's still filming, still hunting, still building a new collection in whatever city he's hiding in. I imagine him watching the news coverage of the case, seeing his name, his face, his crime spread across media, probably loving the attention, the notoriety, the proof that he matters, that his work is recognized. That's what the profilers say drives people like him: need for significance, need to prove they're exceptional, need to leave a mark on the world. He wanted to be remembered, wanted to be feared, wanted to prove he was smarter than everyone hunting him. In that goal, at least, he succeeded. I'll never forget him, never stop looking for him, never stop seeing his videos when I close my eyes. The what-ifs haunt me constantly. What if I'd taken Rebecca Martinez's stalking report more seriously back in 2020? What if I'd investigated harder? What if I'd identified the pattern sooner? The rational part of me knows that's pointless, that I couldn't have known, that he was too good at hiding, too careful, too prepared. But the guilty part of me, the part that watched 73 videos of women being terrorized, that part says I should have known, should have seen something, should have prevented at least some of it. That guilt is corrosive, eats at you slowly, makes you question every decision you ever made on every case, makes you wonder how many other monsters you missed, how many other victims you failed to protect. My therapist says the guilt is irrational, says I'm suffering from a form of survivor's guilt mixed with professional trauma, says I need to accept that I did my best with the information I had. She's probably right, but knowing something intellectually and accepting it emotionally are different things. I can't shake the feeling that if I'd been smarter, faster, better, I could have caught him before he disappeared, before he threatened my family, before he escaped to terrorize new victims elsewhere. That feeling drives me still, makes me monitor dark web forums, makes me follow true crime cases looking for his signature, makes me unable to fully let go and move on. The dark web forums are where I spend too much time now. Anonymous boards where predators brag about their crimes, share techniques, trade materials that would make you lose faith in humanity. I created fake personas, infiltrated communities, looking for any sign of Holloway, any hint of someone operating with his methods, his precision, his need to document. I've reported dozens of predators to authorities, helped take down several operations, but never found Holloway, never found anyone matching his profile exactly. He's either not posting, using methods I can't track, or has stopped entirely. None of those options bring comfort. The case broke me professionally, but it also gave me purpose. Turned me into an advocate for cybercrime victims, someone who understands both the technical and human sides of digital predators. I consult for victim advocacy groups, help train police on how to handle stalking cases, speak at conferences about the importance of taking early warning signs seriously. It's my way of trying to balance the scales, trying to prevent the next Holloway by teaching law enforcement not to make the same mistakes we made. Rebecca Martinez and I work together sometimes, former victim and former investigator united by shared trauma, trying to make something positive from something horrific. The anniversary of receiving that hard drive comes around every October. 5 years now, and I mark it privately, quietly, revisiting the case files I'm not supposed to have, reviewing notes I made during the investigation, torturing myself with evidence photos and timeline documents. Lisa doesn't understand why I do this, why I won't let it go. I've tried to explain that some cases become part of you, that Holloway isn't just a criminal I failed to catch. He's the reason I lost my career, my marriage, my peace of mind. He's woven into my identity now whether I want that or not. She accepts it but worries about me, sees how obsessed I am, how consumed by the need to understand why he chose me, why my name was on that package. I've theorized endlessly about that. Why me specifically? What made me his target beyond just being the cybercrime detective likely to catch the case? I reviewed every arrest I'd ever made, every case I'd worked, looking for prior contact with Holloway, any connection I'd missed. Found nothing, no overlap, no prior interaction, no reason he'd know me before he sent that drive. The profilers think it was random, that he researched the department, picked the lead cybercrime detective, made it personal to create maximum psychological impact. But I don't buy that. There was something deliberate about choosing me. Something I'm missing? Some connection I haven't found yet? The encrypted files from his laptop included a journal, written entries documenting his crimes in clinical detail, and in those entries he mentioned me by name twice before he ever sent the hard drive. Detective Webb seems competent based on his case history. This will be an interesting test of his abilities. One entry read, I've been watching Detective Webb for 3 months. Know his routines, his family, his weaknesses. When the time comes to reveal myself, he'll be perfectly positioned to appreciate my work. He'd been stalking me for 3 months before sending that drive, had been watching me the same way he watched his victims. Learning my patterns, my vulnerabilities, my life. That knowledge makes my skin crawl, makes me paranoid about every moment of those 3 months, wondering when he was there, when he was watching, how close he got. Security footage from the police station parking lot showed a white van, Holloway's van, on 12 different occasions during those 3 months, parked in visitor spots, him sitting inside watching the building, watching officers come and go. Watching me specifically. He'd filmed me, same first-person perspective as his other videos. Footage we found in his apartment showed me walking to my car, talking on my phone, getting coffee at the station, living my normal life completely unaware I was being hunted. The violation of that, of being on the other side of his camera, of being reduced to footage in his collection, it's something I still can't fully process. I understand now how his victims felt. That loss of control, that knowledge that someone was watching your most mundane moments and finding meaning in them. The manhunt technically ended after 6 months. Resources were redirected to active cases. Holloway's file went from urgent to ongoing, from priority to cold case in the span of half a year. I fought it, argued for continued resources, but I was no longer a detective, had no authority, couldn't make demands. The FBI agent in charge, Martinez, he sympathized but had realistic expectations about finding someone who'd prepared his disappearance for years. He's gone, Webb, Martinez told me. He might surface again someday, might make a mistake, but actively searching for him now is like looking for a ghost. We're better off waiting for him to come to us. I knew he was right, but couldn't accept it. Couldn't stop searching even without department resources, couldn't let Holloway win by disappearing. I spent my own money hiring private investigators, tracking down leads the FBI deemed not worth pursuing, following threads that went nowhere, chasing ghosts because I couldn't do nothing. Lisa begged me to stop, to accept that he was gone, to focus on her life instead of my obsession. We fought about it constantly, my inability to let go, my need to keep searching, my refusal to accept that some criminals escape justice. She gave me an ultimatum, her or the case, choose one. And I chose the case, chose the hunt, chose the obsession over my marriage. She left, filed for divorce. I can't blame her. I'd chosen to let this monster continue to control my life, chosen to let him win even in his absence. Alone again, no wife, estranged from my daughter who couldn't understand why I'd let my second marriage fall apart. I dove deeper into the investigation, spent 18 hours a day on forums, tracking tips, building theories. I convinced myself I was close to a breakthrough, that the next lead would be the one, that I'd find something everyone else had missed. I didn't find anything except more frustration, more dead ends, more proof that Holloway had won, had escaped, had proven himself smarter than all of us. The obsession was destroying me. I could see it happening but couldn't stop it, couldn't let go of the need to catch him, to prove he wasn't untouchable, to get justice for all those victims including myself. Rock bottom came on the 6-year anniversary of the case. I was drunk, alone in my apartment, reviewing the same evidence for the 1000th time. And I realized I'd wasted 6 years of my life chasing someone who didn't want to be found, someone who was probably dead or had successfully disappeared forever. 6 years of my life consumed by one monster. 6 years I'd never get back. 6 years I could have spent healing, rebuilding, being present for my daughter as she grew up. The waste of it hit me all at once. The futility of my obsession, the reality that Holloway had taken my career, my marriages, my peace of mind, and I'd let him. I'd given him that power by refusing to move on. I deleted all my case files that night, threw away my copies of evidence, shut down my fake dark web profiles, cut every tie to the investigation. It felt like giving up, felt like letting him win, but it also felt like release, like finally letting go of weight I'd been carrying for too long. I called my daughter, apologized for not being present, for letting my obsession with the case ruin our relationship. She cried, said she'd been waiting for me to come back to reality, said she forgave me but needed time to rebuild trust. I promised to do better, to be better, to focus on being her father instead of being a failed detective chasing ghosts. Therapy intensified after that, twice-a-week sessions working through the trauma, the obsession, the need for closure in a case that would probably never have closure. My therapist helped me understand that seeking justice is noble, but destroying yourself in the process serves no one. That the best revenge against someone like Holloway is to live well, to heal, to not let him continue to control my life from wherever he's hiding. It took 2 more years, but I started to believe that, started to build a life that wasn't defined by what I'd lost, started to reconnect with Emma, started to date again, started to imagine a future that didn't revolve around catching a monster who disappeared into the wind. I'm 47 now, 8 years removed from the case, living a quiet life working IT security for a hospital system, dating a woman who knows nothing about my past except that I used to be a cop and had a difficult case that made me leave the force. Emma's in college studying psychology like she always planned. We have a good relationship now, talk weekly. I visit her campus sometimes, and we pretend the early years of trauma never happened. I still check the FBI's most wanted list occasionally. Still see Holloway's face there, still feel a twinge of the old obsession. But I don't let it consume me anymore. Don't let it control my life. Don't give him that power anymore. News came last month. 8 years and 2 months after Holloway disappeared, they found him or what was left of him. Hiker in Colorado discovered human remains in a remote area. Dental records eventually confirmed it was Marcus Holloway, dead for approximately 7 years based on decomposition and forensic analysis. He'd been shot, single gunshot to the head, execution style, his body buried in a shallow grave miles from any trail or road. The investigation into his death is ongoing. No suspects, no witnesses, no evidence of who killed him or why. Part of me wants to know, wants to understand what happened, who got to him before we did. Part of me doesn't care, just feels relief that he's dead, that he can't hurt anyone else, that the threat is finally over. The FBI called to notify me personally. Martinez saying he thought I deserved to know after everything the case had put me through. He said they'd searched the area around the body, found no hard drives, no videos, no evidence of continued crimes. Holloway had apparently stopped after fleeing, had been living under a false identity, working construction, keeping low profile until someone killed him. Martinez theorized it might have been revenge, maybe a victim's family member who'd tracked him down, maybe another criminal he'd crossed, maybe completely unrelated to his crimes. The case of his death would probably never be solved. Didn't really matter. What mattered was that Marcus Holloway was confirmed dead, the manhunt was over, the threat was neutralized. I called Rebecca Martinez, not the FBI agent but the victim advocate, the woman from Video One who turned her trauma into purpose. She organized a gathering of the support group, told them Holloway was dead, watched as they processed the news, some crying with relief, some angry they'd never get to face him in court, all of them feeling something shift, some small piece of closure clicking into place. We toasted his death, not celebrating exactly, but acknowledging that a chapter had closed, that they could stop looking over their shoulders, that the specific monster who'd haunted them was gone. It wasn't full healing, wasn't complete justice, but it was something. It was an ending when so many of them thought there'd never be one. Emma asked if I was okay when I told her the news, asked if it brought me peace or just more questions. Honestly, I don't know. I feel relief that he's dead, that he can't hurt anyone else, that the families of victims can have some form of closure. But I also feel cheated out of the confrontation I'd imagined for 8 years. The moment where I'd look him in the eye and ask why me, why those women, why the videos, why any of it. Those questions will never be answered now. Holloway took them to his grave, and I have to accept that some things will remain mysteries forever, that not every story gets a complete ending. The media covered his death briefly, old case brought back to public attention, updates on identified victims, speculation about who killed him and why. True Crime Podcast did episodes about it, rehashing the timeline, interviewing victims who were willing to talk. Some reached out to me for comment. I declined, had nothing to say publicly, wanted to let the story die with him. Rebecca did some interviews, talked about the importance of taking stalking seriously, about the failures in the system that allowed Holloway to operate for so long, about the need for better victim support and law enforcement training. Her advocacy work continues. Holloway's death doesn't change the need for systemic reform. The 73 videos remain locked in evidence, will probably stay there permanently now that the perpetrator is dead. No trial will ever happen, no public airing of that evidence, just sealed files in a federal facility that will eventually be destroyed according to retention policies. Part of me wishes they'd be destroyed now, wiped from existence. Those moments of terror and violation erased so they can't ever be leaked or accessed by people who shouldn't see them. But they're also evidence of crimes committed, documentation that those women's trauma was real, proof that their reports should have been taken seriously. The balance between preserving evidence and protecting victim privacy is complicated. I don't know what the right answer is. I visited the Colorado location where his body was found, needed to see it for myself. Needed some tangible proof that he was really gone, that the threat was over. It was remote, beautiful in a desolate way. Mountains and forest and silence, no one around for miles. I stood at the location marker the FBI had placed, looked at the spot where he'd been buried, tried to feel something. Closure maybe, or peace, or vindication. I felt nothing, just emptiness. Just the recognition that he'd been dead for 7 of the 8 years I'd been obsessing over finding him. That I'd wasted all that time and energy hunting a ghost who was already in the ground. The irony of that, the waste of it, it would be funny if it wasn't so tragic. His killer will probably never be identified. The trail is too cold, the location too remote, the forensic evidence too degraded. I have my theories. Think maybe one of the unidentified victims from his videos had family who found out, who tracked him down, who delivered their own justice when the system failed to. Or maybe it was completely unrelated, random violence or criminal dispute that had nothing to do with his documented crimes. It doesn't matter really. The result is the same. Marcus Holloway is dead. His victims can breathe a little easier, and the world is marginally safer without him in it. That's enough. It has to be enough, because it's all we're going to get. Closure is a strange concept when it comes to cases like this. The word implies finality, completion, all loose ends tied up. But that's not reality. There are still 12 unidentified victims, still 73 women living with trauma, still questions that will never be answered. Holloway's death doesn't undo what he did, doesn't erase the videos, doesn't heal the wounds he inflicted. It just means he can't create new wounds, can't add to the body count, can't send any more hard drives to unsuspecting detectives. That's something. It's not closure, but it's something. It's a period at the end of a sentence, even if the sentence doesn't make complete sense. I'm in a better place now than I was a year ago, before we knew he was dead, when I still carried the weight of the active threat, the possibility he was out there watching. Learning he'd been dead for 7 years was jarring, meant all that paranoia, all those security measures, all that looking over my shoulder was directed at a ghost, at someone who couldn't hurt me because he was already gone. It made me feel foolish but also relieved. The threat was never real, not after that first year. I'd been afraid of a dead man for 7 years. The waste of that fear, the energy I spent on it, the relationships I damaged because of it, all directed at someone who was already rotting in a Colorado forest. My therapist says trauma doesn't follow logical timelines, that my fear was valid even if the threat had ended, that I couldn't have known he was dead, that my responses were normal given what I'd experienced. She's probably right, but it's hard not to feel like I gave Holloway exactly what he wanted. years of my life consumed by fear and obsession. Years where he controlled me even in death, maybe especially in death because I didn't know to stop looking. That's his final victory. The years he stole from me, the damage he did to my psyche that continued long after he was gone. I'm working on reclaiming those years, on building a life that isn't defined by what he did to me, on being present instead of haunted. Emma and I went to dinner last week. She asked me about the case for the first time in years. Said she'd seen the news about Holloway's death, wanted to know how I was processing it. I told her honestly, said I felt relief and anger and grief all mixed together. Relief that it was over, anger that he got away with it for so long. Grief for all the victims, including my younger self, who'd been destroyed by this case. She said something wise beyond her years. He took a lot from you, Dad, but you're still here and he's not. That means you won, even if it doesn't feel like winning. She's right. Survival is a kind of victory. Living beyond your trauma is resistance. Refusing to let it define you completely is winning. The support group held a memorial service of sorts, not for Holloway, but for the victims who didn't survive. The women who were killed or who took their own lives after being victimized, the unknown victims we still can't identify. Rebecca organized it. Dozens of people came, family members of victims, survivors, advocates, even a few cops who'd worked the case. I spoke briefly, talked about the importance of remembering not just the crimes, but the people who suffered, about honoring victims by preventing future victimization, about turning trauma into advocacy. It was healing in a way I didn't expect, being surrounded by people who understood, who'd been impacted by the same monster, who were all trying to find meaning in the aftermath. Marcus Holloway's grave in Colorado will remain unmarked, no headstone, no memorial, just a plot number in county records. His family, what little there was, declined to claim the body, wanted nothing to do with him after learning what he'd done. He'll be buried in a pauper's grave, forgotten, unmourned, exactly what he deserves. The contrast between his unmarked grave and the memorials for his victims feels appropriate. He wanted to be remembered, wanted to be significant, wanted his work to matter, and instead he's nobody, nothing, just bones in the ground that no one will visit. That's the only justice available now, denying him the legacy he sought, refusing to give him the notoriety he craved, letting him fade into obscurity. The videos haunt me still. I can't unsee what I saw. Can't unhear the sounds of those women's terror. Can't forget the clinical precision with which Holloway documented their suffering. Those images live in my head rent-free, pop up at random moments, intrusive thoughts I can't control. My therapist says that might never fully go away, that exposure to that level of trauma leaves permanent marks, that learning to manage the flashbacks is more realistic than eliminating them completely. I've accepted that I'll carry this forever, that Marcus Holloway will always be a part of my story even though he's dead, even though I've moved on, even though I'm building a life that isn't defined by him. I quit being a cop because of those videos, because after seeing that level of evil documented in first person, I couldn't do the work anymore. Couldn't look at evidence without seeing Holloway's gloved hands, couldn't interview victims without hearing his breathing, couldn't investigate crimes without wondering if another monster out there was filming, documenting, collecting. The job I'd loved became impossible. The career I built became a source of trauma, and I had to walk away to survive. That loss still hurts, still feels like he won, like he took my purpose and my identity and left me adrift. But I found new purpose in advocacy, in prevention, in helping train the next generation of investigators to recognize warning signs earlier, to take reports seriously, to understand that every stalking case could be a Marcus Holloway waiting to escalate. Holloway's death closed the active investigation but opened new questions about who killed him and why. Questions that will probably never be answered. Questions I'm trying not to let consume me the way finding him alive consumed me for years. I check in with FBI Agent Martinez occasionally, see if there's any progress on the homicide investigation. There never is. The trail is too cold. The location too remote. Whoever killed Holloway knew what they were doing and left no evidence. Part of me hopes they never catch his killer. hopes whoever delivered that justice gets away with it, poetic in a way. The predator who thought he was untouchable getting hunted himself, getting executed and buried like the trash he was. That's probably not a healthy attitude for a former cop to have. But I stopped caring about healthy attitudes regarding Marcus Holloway a long time ago. The final detail, the one that never made it into any report, the one I've never told anyone until now is this: I'm glad he's dead. Genuinely relieved that Marcus Holloway is gone from this world, and I wish I could have been the one to pull the trigger. That's not justice, that's not legal, that's not professional, but it's honest. It's what I feel in my darkest moments when I wake up from nightmares about those videos, when I remember his voice on that last video saying he'd always be watching. I'm glad someone stopped him permanently, glad he can't hurt anyone else. Glad his victims can sleep a little easier knowing their monster is in the ground. That's not the moral high ground. That's not what cops are supposed to think. But I'm not a cop anymore. Haven't been for 8 years. Marcus Holloway took that from me too. And I'm done pretending to be above feeling satisfaction at his death. Some cases you work and close and file away. Some cases stay with you, shape you, change who you are fundamentally. This was that case for me. The one that ended my dream of being a cop forever, the one that cost me marriages and years of my life, the one that still defines me in ways I'm still discovering. Marcus Holloway sent me those videos to prove his superiority, to show me I was powerless, to demonstrate his control. But I'm still here and he's not. I'm still fighting to help victims and prevent future crimes, and he's rotting in an unmarked grave. That has to count for something. That has to mean something. Because if it doesn't, then he won completely. And I can't accept that. Won't accept that. Refuse to let a dead monster have the final word on my story.